there's a number of things that may be on our mind this morning, and I know one of them is definitely the Bills game. So I promise I'll have you out by 3 o'clock.
Oh,
Got plenty of time, so just sit back and relax.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another thing I just want to say, just to clarify, and I do want to avoid some confusion. As far as the vote is concerned, I have not made any decision as to what that means for my future, what that means for our family's future here at Creekside. No announcements have been made as of yet. I do just want to thank the church for everyone's big vote. I hold no anger towards the church or no bitterness towards anyone who may know. I accept the vote as it stands, and will continue to seek God's guidance and His direction, not only for my life, for our family's life, but for the church's life going forward. There are many things that are happening now, and so we're just going to continue to pray and seek and ask God about what He wants for us and for us to do. With that being said, we're going to turn open to James chapter 1. James chapter 1. If you have your Bibles. And I don't know if they'll have it on the screen. They may have it on the screen here. James 1, we're going to start with verse 2. Here's what it says. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. And we'll stop there. Let's pray. Father, we thank you once again for who you are, for all that you're doing. We thank you, Father, that you exist, and that we can trust you with all of our hearts, so we can lean not on our own understanding, but in all our ways acknowledge you. You will make our path straight. You will form the path for us. We thank you, Father. We ask you to go before us, ahead of us, with us in every way. And we ask you for these things. In Jesus' name, amen. So James here starts out by saying, consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds. And we hear that phrase, consider it pure joy, when you face trials of many kinds. You may say today, kidding me, right? You're being sarcastic with me. You've got to be joking. I think of my stepdad when he married my mom. My mom married very late in life, and many of you have seen my stepdad before he's in the church. Whenever my mom comes, they come together. They got married very late, and my stepfather has not much patience for many things in his life. And one of those things that he had, while he was trying to have a lot of patience for, was when they got married on their wedding day. They had their pictures taken, and as you can imagine, on your wedding day, you would have a number of pictures taken. And he felt like this was something that was not necessarily exciting, but he was willing to endure it with a smile on his face. And every time the photographer snapped a picture of them, he would be like, I'm loving this, I'm loving this. And he says it with this smile on his face, but with definitely more than a hint of sarcasm, because he knew he was taking every second of it. And the wedding day was fine, but the pictures he did not want to sit through. But James is saying, consider your trials, consider your difficulties, and the things that you face, pure joy. And he doesn't say it with sarcasm. He says it with a straight face. And he even says, not just a trial, James talks about. He says, when you face trials of many kinds, and that's plural with an S on it. When you face trials of many kinds, sometimes things in life happen, and we get maybe one long test in life that we have to endure, one long difficulty, one hardship that we need to go through. Maybe it's sickness, maybe it's a job loss, maybe the list can go on and on of things that we face. And it's just maybe one long thing that we have to go through. But many times in life, it's not necessarily one long thing that we go through, but it might be a series of smaller trials and tribulations, a series of smaller difficulties and things that we have to go through that test the endurance of our faith. Will our faith meet this test? Will it last? Will it be strong in the midst of this trial that we endure? And faith says, listen, faith is an assurance about those things that are unseen, even in the midst of trials, even in the midst of difficulties. Faith says, I have an assurance about this God that exists. I have an assurance about the direction that He has for my life. I have an assurance about His willingness to be in the situation with me, and I'm going to continue to trust Him in it. But a difficulty, a test, will test that kind of faith. It will put that kind of faith, that kind of assurance in, and maybe an assurance about the future that we once had. We're not sure about the future anymore because of something that has happened. We're not sure about anything that's going on in the present moment. It's testing our faith. We're not sure sometimes if God is even there present in the circumstance. So our faith gets tested. Our assurance in things that are unseen begin to get tested by the difficulty that we face. But there's a few points that I want to make when it comes to the testing of our faith this morning. And the first point I want to make is this, that God, when it comes to the testing of our faith, God makes the test. So how can we consider it pure joy when we face tests and trials of many kinds? How can we consider that pure joy? Because number one, we understand that when we go through the difficulty, when we go through a storm, when we go through a trying circumstance, we know that God makes the test. He's designed it. He's not abandoned us. He's not left us. But He has provided something here to do a work in our lives. I think of the story of Abraham. Many of us know the story of Abraham. And I think of when God called Abraham and said, I'm going to give you a son in your old age. And Abraham did indeed have a son in a very old age, past childbearing age. And this was the child of promise. Here's Isaac, the promised child that God had given to him. This was the man, or this was the boy that was going to carry on Abraham's descendants. And God says to Abraham, He says, look, I want you to take that boy that I've just given to you, the one through whom I promised you so many descendants, and I want you to take him up the mountain, and you're going to sacrifice him. And Abraham, it doesn't say Abraham wavered in his faith at all. Abraham had a test of faith here. He could have said, well, God, I know what you promised me. You said that I was going to have many descendants, that I was going to be a father of many nations. Well, here's my only son, and you're calling me to sacrifice him. That could have tested Abraham's faith. And I'm sure it did. We don't necessarily see that in that portion of Scripture. But all sorts of questions must have gone through his mind. Abraham must have been like, well, what now? What is going to happen now? Is the promise still going to stand? Can I still put my faith in that promise? Can I still put my faith in this God who promised me so much? Can I still trust Him? Nevertheless, Abraham takes his son Isaac up the mountain, and he begins to prepare a sacrifice. He begins to sacrifice his son. And even though Abraham's faith was tested in this circumstance, we see in Hebrews that his faith passed the test, because as Hebrews says, Abraham believed that God could even raise the dead. And he said, I'm going to continue to trust Him, even though I have so many questions, even though I'm in the middle of this great difficulty. I'm about to kill my old Abraham reason. His faith did not fail. It could have failed. It was the test was pass or fail. You're going to pass this or you're going to fail this. It could have failed. He could have said, no, I'm not going to do this, and I don't know if I trust this God anymore. I'm keeping this son for myself. But his faith said, no. He raised that God can even raise my son from the dead. I'm going to continue to trust Him with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my strength. I'm going to continue to believe in Him. And He raised the knife to kill His son. But God did indeed bring his son Isaac back from the dead. He said, stop, you were about to kill your son, but that is not my intent. I know that you trust me, I know that you love me, and will not keep your only son from me, and so I'm going to continue to bless you. What an amazing thing. I think of others whose faith was tested. We can think of Joseph, who had all of these dreams, and God was giving him visions of what his life would be. He was showing him how he was going to be even ruler over his own family. And he began to tell his own family, listen, this is what God is showing me, and I am going to begin to rule over you. This is basically what the dreams were saying. And he's annoying his brothers so much that they throw him into a well, that they leave him, they were going to leave him there for dead. In fact, they were going to take his life. But they left him there, and then they sold him off into slavery, and he goes into slavery, and he's in Egypt for a time, and he's gaining favor in Potiphar's house. Everything seems to be going well. Then he's falsely accused. Then he's thrown into a prison. And in all of this, Joseph's faith could have failed. It was a testing of his faith. He could have said, God, I know that you had given me this dream. I know what you told me. And now here I am. I'm at the bottom of a well. I'm being sold into slavery. How is this going to work out your purpose? Nevertheless, Joseph understood something. Just as Abraham understood something. God made the test. God was behind this. His hand was in this. He was doing something in this great difficult circumstance. And Joseph's faith, again, was tested. It could have failed. He could have said, well, God has forgotten me. Maybe God doesn't exist. Maybe the dreams that I had were just that. Maybe they were false notions. Maybe they were just inklings of my imagination, and there's really nothing here. And now I'm going to just rot in a cell. But yet, through faith and believing and trusting God, Joseph was given interpretations of Pharaoh's dreams, was able to interpret Pharaoh's dreams, and was given even greater position than he had at first, because his faith did not fail. He trusted this God who was doing something great in his life, even though there were things all around him that were not looking so great. There were great difficulties that he was having trouble seeing through at the time. I think of Pastor's last message that he gave just before he became sick. I don't know if many of you remember his last message that he gave. I do. I remember one of the last things that he said in his message. He said, he was talking about Christ and how Christ put his disciples in the boat and were going across the sea. Christ put them in the boat. He put them in the test. He said, we're all getting in this boat now, and we're going to go across the water, and they go across the sea. And he puts them right in the middle of a storm. Was that a test of their faith? Was that a test of their confidence? It absolutely was. And so there you have the disciples in a boat, getting rocked by the wind and the waves. And they could have lost hope. And in fact, they were tempted to despair. That everything was done and over with. The waves are too strong. The waves are too big. And we're going to lose our lives. Where is Jesus in this? What is going on? Their faith is tested and was just about to fail. And yet Jesus rescues them. But Jesus designed that test. He put them in the boat. He put them in a boat, and he put them on a body of water where the waves were rocking. And I got to say right now, personally, in my own life, I'm in the boat. I look at my own life, I say, this is a little bit about me. I'm in the boat, and the waves are rocking, and the waves are kicking, and I can't see the way forward, and I don't know what God is doing. But all I can do and all I can know is I can trust God with what he's doing. I know and I can have confidence, and I can consider even this pure joy, as James says, because I understand that God has created the test. God has made this. He's designed it. And I honestly see, even in this boat, I do see the hand of God in it. So I'm not upset. I'm not in despair. I'm continuing to look to him, and I'm continuing to trust him. Even though it's hard to see the way forward. Just like disciples are in the boat, and the waves are crashing, the waves are spilling over. They can't see the way ahead. They can't see the shore ahead. They don't know where they're going. They don't know where they're going to end up. They don't know. All they know is all they have is Jesus with them. All they have is God with them. And their faith is not going to fail because they have Christ with them. And we have Christ with us. We have God with us no matter what the trial is. I have to fail. And I know that Jesus is with me, even personally with me in this boat. I know I've seen it clearly many times in these last couple of weeks. Jesus is clearly with me. I will tell you also, there are others in the boat as well. Not just me. It is not just about me. Pastor is in the boat as well. His boat is rocking. There's trouble seeing a way forward. But we don't despair. We don't give up hope because we know that He is in the boat with us. Who else is in the boat? The church itself right now is in the boat. What is the way forward? What is going to happen? But I firmly believe that God has placed all of us in the boat for a purpose. And I don't fully know, and it's hard to see in the middle of the storm. It's hard to see in the middle of the test what that purpose is. It's hard to know it, but we can know that God has designed it. And because we know that God has designed it, we can consider it pure joy as we go through it. People have not designed this, but God has designed it, and we can continue to look to Him. And we can also know that even though that we're in this boat, even though we might not be able to see a way forward right now, we can know that there is one who does see the way forward, that He does have a destination, that He is bringing us somewhere, and we might not fully know what that shore looks like on the other side of the storm, but He does, and He will bring us through, and we can continue to trust in Him for it. If faith is an assurance about what is unseen, then what happens? The question for us this morning is this. When our hope is questioned, what happens when God's provision or presence in our lives is questioned? What happens in those circumstances? Again, God designs the test. He designs the trial. He designs the difficulty. And it is to test our faith. It is a proving ground for us. But the test can look in a lot of different ways. The test can take a lot of different forms. A testing of our faith can look like just a great difficulty in our life. And great difficulties can try our faith in a couple of ways. Again, we can question if God is there. We don't necessarily have an assurance that His presence is in it. It can make us question if hope is ever going to exist in our lives again. Tests can also cause us to be unable to see a path forward. And that can try our faith. It can test our faith. Because faith says, now if I can't see a way forward, then there's something else that has to happen here. I have to go not by what I can see. I have to go by faith. I have to go by what I can't see. I have to go by not what I can see visually with my eyes, but I have to go by what I hear God's voice saying to me. I have to continue to remain. I have to stay in the test. And the only way I continue to go through the test is just to continue to listen and trust Him. Because I can't see. I don't know. I don't know what the future holds. I can't see God physically with my own eyes. All I can do is continue to listen for His voice. But the question in the difficulty, in the circumstance is, am I going to be patient with Him? Am I going to continue to consider it pure joy? Am I going to be patient enough with Him just to continue to listen and wait for His direction and see which way He's taking me? That is a test of our faith. Or are we going to get impatient with God? Are we going to be undisciplined in our patience? We need to keep discipline, to keep listening, and not get ahead of God during the trial or the test, and not get behind Him. Because our patience in a test will be tried. It will definitely be tried, one way or the other. What else could the test look like? Testing may also look like just a complete failure in my life. It can look like everything is over, everything is done. we can go through moments in our life where we're being tried, and we're being tried, and we're being tried again. I may go, actually, James talks about that we go through many kinds of trials. That is absolutely true. We go through all sorts of different ones. Some of us, we just keep going through the same one again and again and again. It's the same difficulty that we face again and again and again. And it seems like we're always, for some of us, and I know I've been there, it seems like we're always failing. The difficulty comes and we're always failing again. We're always hitting this wall. And it's like, my faith seems to be failing in this. So what am I going to do about it? It is a testing of my faith, but I seem to not be meeting the challenge of the test. So then when my faith doesn't seem to be raising up to that, I just keep hitting a wall. God, what do I do about this? You know what I think God says in that? When we're hitting the same test again and again, and we feel like, our natural feeling, we feel like we're failing. But God might actually be saying in the test, you're winning. And how could God be saying that I'm winning? Because God is not just looking to test our faith in the middle of the test. What is He also looking? He's looking to produce something in the middle of the difficulty. He might say, you think you're failing in the middle of this. You might feel your faith is failing in the middle of this thing that you're going through. But what I want you to see and what I want you to know is I'm going to begin to produce something in you. And as long as you continue to endure the test again and again, as long as you continue to go through the trial and you go through the difficulty, as tough as it is, as much as you feel like you keep failing, what I'm producing in you is something that James talks about here. It's called perseverance. I have another goal in mind. It's not just the testing of your faith, but it's also to know that the testing of your faith will produce perseverance. And first and foremost, as you go through the test, as you go through the trial, I'm looking for you, church, to persevere and to keep moving in the direction that I'm calling you to move. Don't let your faith fail. Continue to listen for me. Continue to trust me. Continue to know that there is a way ahead. Even though it looks dark, even though it looks gloomy, even looks like it's all over, continue to persevere. Because perseverance is then going to build something else in us. You know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. And James says that perseverance, finish its work. You need to allow it to keep working. It's an interesting phrase because perseverance is just that. It just keeps going. It takes a licking, it keeps on ticking. Right? And perseverance is just that thing. It's like, what do you mean, let perseverance finish its work? Yes, absolutely. That's what perseverance is. I need to allow this thing to finish. I need to keep going through it until the work is finished. The scripture says, let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete. So not only is perseverance beginning to be produced in the test, but perseverance is produced so that we can attain something else in the middle of the test as well. And that thing is maturity. That thing is completeness or wholeness. God has other goals in the test of faith that He wants to see produce or come to fruition. The question for us is, have we been facing many trials? Have we been facing great difficulty? And the biggest question that we need to answer is this: are we persevering in the middle of it? Because if we're persevering, we're answering the call that God has given to us. We're persevering, we're answering that test that God has given to us. And that perseverance will begin over time as we allow it to finish its work. That perseverance over time will begin to build something in us. We might not see the answer to all of our questions. No, that's not the promise here. We might not see the answer to every difficulty. That's not the promise here. But as we continue to persevere, what we will see, what God will produce, is first of all, maturity in us. And second of all, a completeness in us. In areas where we may have been lacking. So we can consider it pure joy. We can consider all these pure joy. The test asks the question, will our faith remain? Will our faith persevere? The second major point that I want to make this morning is not only that to know that God has designed the test. That allows us and that gives us a hope to have pure joy in the middle of it. But the second point I want to make is this. Not only has God designed it, not only has He made it, but He is in it. And He's in it for that very purpose. He has great purposes in the test of our faith. More than just getting out of the difficulty, more than just like seeing it all resolved and everything come to some sort of calmness or to some sort of resolution. He has designed the test for a purpose, and He is in it. God is the goal for our testing. It's for our blessing. His desire is not only for us to pass the test, but it's also so that not only do we pass the test, but so that we receive some benefit from it. Failing the test of faith can look like a few different things when the test comes. Failing the test can look like just becoming miserable with God, just becoming angry at Him, just saying, I don't see any reason in this. I don't see any purpose in this. I don't know what God is doing. And we can get upset with God. We can get angry with Him. We can cop an attitude with God. We can be put off by Him. We can be like, well, God, you put me in this, and now I'm just angry at you, and I don't even want to pray anymore. I just don't want to do it. I don't even want to go to church anymore. I just don't want to do it because I'm just getting upset with this situation. I'm not going to persevere in this because this is too great a difficulty. And so we begin checking out halfway through. But again, God first and foremost is looking for perseverance. He wants us to go through that testing. And after we go through the testing, what does He really want to do? What is He really looking to do in us? He wants us to bring, most of all, He wants us to go through it so that He can bring us to a place of promotion. Not a place of destruction, but a place where we're more complete in Him, we're more secure in Him. If there was anything that is lacking, it's being made complete. If there is any immaturity in our lives, there is maturity that is being built there, and that we can receive this great benefit. One thing that we need to remember as we go through the test, as we endure it, as we persevere, is again, not to cop an attitude with God, not to give up in the middle of it. Continue to look for something that God wants to do in our lives. Look for the thing that God wants to begin to grow. But also this, James points this out as well in this passage. He said, I want you to let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete. I want you to not lack anything. And if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all, without finding fault, and it will be given to you. So what is another thing that God calls to us to do in the test? He calls to us to ask for wisdom in the middle of it. Again, the storm rages. Again, the difficulty comes. Again, we don't know what's going on. We don't know the way forward. And the only way that we can take the next step, the only way that we can move ahead in God is to begin to trust Him and to ask Him for wisdom so that we know what to do in the middle of the trial and in the middle of the difficulty. So it's very important as we go through this time when we're all in the boat together, all of us are, is to endure, persevere, and as we endure, as we persevere, continue to ask God for wisdom. What do you want, Lord? What are you going to do in my life? What are you speaking to me? What are you saying to me? Life is not giving me the direction at all. In fact, life has given me only chaos. This thing that you have given to me has given me what I can see is only chaos. And so, Father, I'm going to continue to trust you and ask you for your direction and your leading and your wisdom so that all of these things that you want to produce in me are produced so that I can gain and receive every benefit that you want for my life. And not only that, so that eventually this storm will subside and this storm will end and I will come out on the other side. It will be much better than it was when I went even into the storm. And so instead of seeing the test as my impending destruction, instead of seeing the test as a coming doom, or seeing the test as my demotion, what I do is I see the test
as my promotion. I can consider this thing pure joy. Because Christ, you're here. Christ, you're looking to produce something in me. You thought enough of me that you've given me this difficulty. You thought enough of me. You thought enough of me that you can entrust me with this thing, put this thing into my life, so that I will come out on the other side and be promoted to another place in you. First and foremost, in you. Spiritually speaking, in maturity. Spiritually speaking, in wholeness and completeness, not lacking anything. And we can begin to trust God with that. Even in dark places, even in places where it's hard to see. Someone said one time, they said, you only get as far as your greatest weaknesses will take you. And God knows our weaknesses. He knows our frame. He knows that we're but dust. He understands that. He understands that there are certain things, no matter how old we are, that need to be worked out in each one of us. And so when He brings us through something, it is so that those weaknesses will just be made our strengths, will become our strengths. And so that we'll be able to go through the next difficulty or the next thing that God calls us to. So that we'll be able to face those things. James says, the testing is for us to be complete, to be tried, and to be tested. And sometimes the pathway, I was listening to some, there was some leadership training seminar, and there's a pastor named, I don't think I'm going to be able to pronounce his last name properly, but his name is Craig Groeschel. And one of the quotes that he had in this leadership seminar that he was giving is he said, a pathway sometimes to your greatest potential is often through your greatest fear. Through your greatest fear. So God will put us through some dark things and some trying times, even some fearful and scary times. The things that we fear most, because He sees the potential in us to be mature and complete. He wants to, His desire is to promote us, to make it, to at the end of the trial, make it even better than it was before we came in. So we can say with James, I consider this trial pure joy in my life. And say it. How can I say it? To summarize, I'm going to give you 3 reasons. How can I say this thing is pure joy? Number 1, I say, for the church, for myself, for pastor, this thing is pure joy. Why? Because Jesus is present. He's with us. He designed it. He's present with us, and He's present with the church. And I stand by my statement that I made on New Year's Day. I still believe, whether I'm here or not, I still firmly believe that God has a beautiful future for Creekside. I know there is a great hope for this church. I know that God desires to grow this church. I know He has many plans for this church. And I firmly believe that. And that is my hope as well, that that great things do happen at Creekside. But first of all, we can consider this trial, this current circumstance, this difficulty where the waves are rocking, we don't know what's going on. We can say it's pure joy because Jesus, at least you're here. We know that you made it. I can also, personally, I can also consider my own personal trial, and maybe this will be a lesson for some of us. I can also consider this personal trial in my life pure joy. Why? Because not only is Christ present personally in my life, but He's giving me gladness. It's an ironic thing. It's a weird thing. It's a strange thing. Christ is giving me gladness in this great. Yes, have there been ups and downs? Yes. The last few weeks have been crazy turbulent. Very, very difficult. Have there been moments where Kim would say, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. It's all right. Another time, a couple hours later, are you okay? I don't know. Now let's talk about this. I need to talk about this some more. Are you okay? No, I'm feeling okay today. Are you okay? And ups and downs, riding the waves. I don't know. But the through line through it all is Christ is present. He's going to be gladness. So I get pure joy in it. And I pray that as a church, continues to sit in the boat for a while, that God gives us joy in the midst of it. He gives us a gladness. He says, I'm here. I've not abandoned the church. I have actually designed this thing. This does not surprise me. It does not shock me in any way. And you can trust me. Your faith does not have to fail. You can trust me, and you can be glad because I'm working and I'm doing something. And I do even greater things actually do even greater things through difficult circumstances. That's how I'm glorified. So you can trust me with this. And one final thing I do want to say is, again, how can I consider this trial pure joy? Number one, Christ is in it. Number two, Christ gives me gladness in it. But number three, we can know and we can trust that because he's there and he designed it, he has a great destination for us. For all of us, he has a great destination for us. And I feel that. I don't know what it is. I can't see it. I don't know. In my personal life, all I can do is I can feel that there is something there, but I can't grab hold of it. But something is coming. And it's for all. There is a great destination. And so I can consider it pure joy. Finally, I'm going to get to my third point here as I begin to close. I'm going to have John and the worship team come up and just begin to prepare. We remember that God designs the test, makes it. God is in the test. So he doesn't just make it and put us out there and leave us on our own. He didn't say, okay, disciples, get out there and I'm just going to back off and I'm going to go to this country club over here. I'm going to get some dinner. You guys have fun. Out on the boat, in the middle of the wind and the waves, and I'm going to abandon you. So not only does he design it, but he's there present with us in it, but also we can have an assurance, because there is a great destination in this, because there is one, we can know that he eventually will provide the way out. He will provide the way out. We don't know how it's going to happen. We don't know how it's going to work. When God came to Abraham, and he said, Abraham, I want you to take your son, and you're going to go up this mountain, and you're going to sacrifice your son. Abraham didn't know that there was going to be any way out. Abraham wasn't sure. His son was like, hey, Dad, where's the sacrifice? I don't see a sacrifice. What's going on here? Abraham's like, God's going to provide the sacrifice. Yes, Abraham, I know that's what you said. But in his heart, I'm not going to tell my son, I'm going to sacrifice you up on this mountain. He's got to say, the sacrifice that God is going to provide is my very son. I'm not going to tell my son that, but this is what the sacrifice is going to be. So he just says to his son, God is going to provide the sacrifice, knowing that it's going to be his boy. I don't know, I don't see the way out. But he brings him, he's about to make that sacrifice. And there, when the angel holds his hand, God says, there's the ram, there's the sacrifice. Provide a way out of this test. You came through it, you're blessed because you came through it. I'm going to continue to bless you. I matured you in it. There was a perseverance on your part, and now I'm going to provide a way out of this test. Joseph, you're there and you're rotting in prison, and you feel like all your fellow prisoners had forgotten about you. They don't remember. They get out of prison and they go to the king, and they completely forget about you and all the good that you did for them. And you're just sitting there rotting. Joseph doesn't know how he's going to get out. What's the way out? What's the purpose? How is God going to do it? And then one of them remembers, oh wait, there's this man Joseph in the prison. King, he can interpret your dream. And how does Joseph interpret dreams? Only by the providence and the provision of God. God is the one providing the way out for Joseph. It's God who put Joseph in place. How did the storm subside? How did the waves stop rocking? How did the waves stop kicking? It was like when Jesus said, peace be still. He provided the way out. And so we can have joy in his presence amidst all of these things. Because in all things, he designs it, he's in it, and he provides the way out. Let's all stand this morning and let's sing together.